Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast, where we celebrate individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, conservation, access, and enjoyment of the outdoors. Emanuel Rose is a returning guest on the Outdoor Adventure Series today. Emanuel is an author, outdoorsman, and marketing expert, and today he'll be sharing more about the launch of his latest book, Nature Bound, with Wenaha Henry. Emanuel, it's great to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm doing really good, Howard. I appreciate you inviting me back on and having a conversation about Nature Bound.
Fantastic. When we had this conversation, I've got to go back and look at the exact date because I was looking at the episode yesterday, and I don't think you even said you were writing a new book. You were just like keeping that a surprise from me.
Yeah, well, it's a funny process. So I had a series of marketing books that I laid out on authenticity, and then and that was a little more sequential.
Mhm.
The nature books, I take them kind of as I get the inspiration. And this book, Nature Bound, came out from some author events I was doing on the Wenaha Henry children's books.
Mhm.
And I noticed that the parents were like, well, yeah, I really wanted to be involved and do stuff outside, but I don't really know how. It was kind of one of those. And so like, okay, well, I could tackle that. I lived through that. I worked through that. So that was my inspiration for putting this one together.
Okay. Now, Wenaha Henry, tell us a little bit about the character because people will want to know that.
Sure. The Wenaha Henry's a red-tailed hawk, and he's the hero of the children's books, and I wrote him for my grandson, and I was inspired to do the writing while I was on a turkey hunting trip on the Wenaha River, and so Henry goes in and gets to experience animals of the forest and the situations of the forest and the biome and explore with his family and with a grandfather grouse, and so that's the background.
Okay. So I'm curious. I mean, you've been an outdoorsman, outdoor kid for like your entire life
Yeah,
and going out with the family and just kind of learning the rudimentary skills to get comfortable outdoors. And when somebody comes to you and they say, Emmanuel, I love your books and I just wish I could take my kids out and feel comfortable myself so that they feel comfortable. Because if you're not comfortable, they're going to pick it up.
yeah, for sure.
What are the first things via your book that you would help to a parent or the grandparents, significant other,
Yeah.
help them get their kid comfortable exploring and just having a great experience and not being something I am never going to do that again?
Yeah, well, it's a challenge that we all have when we take people out to do activities, right? And the first thing is to to start small and keep it simple, and then make it all about the kid having fun and enjoying it. And the classic is like you take a kid fishing, and there's the fish aren't biting, and so you're picking up the rocks and you're looking for the bugs on the bottom of the rock, or you're skipping stones, or you're carving something, right? So it's whatever it takes to get them engaged and having a good time, and then making sure that there's food and drinks and that there's that part of it as well. But to start small and make it a day hike first, right? Like I'm in Central Oregon right now in Sun River, and there's lots of trails on the Deschutes River that are right in town. So just a 2-hour hike up and down one of those paths is its own magical adventure, with the idea that you're doing a scavenger hunt or checking out, trying to find all the yellow rocks that you can find, or something that just opens their eyes to being outside like that.
Okay. And speaking of the kids, the age range for this book, I mean, what is that for the children?
Like 5 to 12 or 13. So
Okay.
that kind of the easy impressionable age when they're still really curious about stuff and they still like to be around the parents a lot.
Okay. And when you're taking the kids out or advising these parents who are coming to you about taking the kids out, what's the first thing? You got the trail, make it easy, a good experience. How does the parent begin to get themselves prepared and also to get their child prepared? So once they are out there, that experience is what you hope it to be.
Yeah, well, one thing is to know just what the area is, right? Like basic mapping and understanding, like say it's the Deschutes River Trail that you have an Onyx or something like that to look at, or a good set of maps. So
Okay.
you're comfortable and secure in the fact that everybody's going to go out and come back safely, and to think through what it is to be the team leader in that situation, right? And how you maintain the group together, and hopefully you have another adult with you. You don't need to, but that there's always an adult in the front and an adult in the back so that the group stays together. And having that rudimentary plan for we're leaving at 10, we're going to walk to for 30 minutes, have a little snack, mess around with some leaves or skip rocks, and then we're going to turn around and come back at 11 or 11:30. So you got just a general plan around distance and timing and supplies, and then you've got the support to keep the cats herded, so to
Okay.
speak.
I understand about herding cats. You just said something that it prompts another question. Here in Vegas, it's hot. Okay. Very hot. And there's a hiking trails all around. There's one in particular called Valley of Fire, just north of me. Gorgeous, but you don't want to be there this time of the year. Okay.
Right.
You just don't because of the heat. When you go out into the trail, Indian River, but in these trails, it seems to make sense that you're taking the kids out, but also people back home know where you're going.
Yeah, that's one of the rudimentary parts, right? So you're always telling somebody where you're going and in general what kind of timing you're looking at. And then when it becomes when you may need help, right? If you're not able to get into contact. We have seen that on in the news lately in Arizona and other places where people have gone out in the blazing heat of the day out in the 120s in Death Valley
Mhm.
and out in the Phoenix area and have gotten totally dehydrated and have perished.
Right. Right.
Um, and so, yeah, I always say follow the animals on that one. Animals are all bedded down during the heat of the day. They
Yep.
move around, in the shoulder times, the early mornings and late evenings. And if you want to go and do a hike, it's better to do it when the sun's not directly on you like that at 100, 110.
Sure. So I'm curious with Nature Bound, how did and for our listeners, if we're still on the video, there it is. There we go. Nature Bound. I was going to ask you, did you want to read a quote or a story from it? But I'm not going to put you on the spot because I usually that's part of my rule. I don't want to put my guest on a spot. But how did you organize the book? I mean, what was kind of your logical progression as you started to think through? I can do this.
Really wanted to have a list of a lot of activities, right? Like, here's a whole bunch of choices that you could do. And actually, some of the people who were my early readers were like, I never considered having my kids spend time by themselves outside
Mhm.
alone, right? And I think to me that surprised me, and it made me think about and reflect. Is like, yeah, as a culture, we don't necessarily spend a lot of time by ourselves, and obviously in that situation, you're also making it so that it's a phone and screen free experience, and so that's an unusual occurrence, and so it was cool that that was the feedback that I got, but, I wanted to have that big list of activities, and then I'm like, well, in order for somebody who maybe didn't grow up or doesn't do this a lot, they need to know, well, what's the most basic things, about comfort and cleanliness and food. How do we manage that? Um, Making sure that the kids are always having fun and that we're not like super type A about it. Like, hey, we said we're going to walk to the top of the mountain. We've got to get to the top of the mountain. Like, that's not a winning formula for having the kid want to go back and do it again, right? And then and then working to normalize it as part of the family's activity. That's what I was hoping, is that in the course of any given 3 months that you're planning this time where the kids can be off the screens, off the phones. And then the little trick in that is that then the parents have to be off the screens and off the phones. And so ultimately we're in the middle of this mental health crisis that is driven by social media and
Mhm.
by our internet usage. And it's a real issue. And and this activity away from electronic devices is what's going to bring us back to being more in balance as humans and with each other.
I love that because I do concur with you. We need to figure out how to be more human and get along. And I think you're onto something is getting away from the screen time and even listening time for that matter on these podcasts. Is the book organized around just that couple hour day trip, or maybe the next book in it is taking your kid for that first day hike or overnight? How's this?
Yeah, this was more around. I was picturing more around just short activities, day use activities, quick hits to the local national forest or BLM property. And yeah, there is the next in the sequence that would be the family camping and activity version of that. If there's a demand and an interest in such a book.
Okay. Well, just remember there's got to be a little bit of a shout out to Howard Fox for sparking that idea.
That's right. I'll dedicate it to you, Howard.
There you go. So you mentioned Parkland BLM. How did they come into play here? I mean, so I'm the parent. We're going to take I'm starting to plan taking my children out. There's the other adult. We've got the clothing, we've got the snacks, we've got some activities, the activities we hope to do, then maybe the plan B activities. And by the way, I have to say again, sitting on a rock somewhere overlooking a stream with nothing else
Yeah.
is like, I'm all in for that. I have to have my cup of coffee or adult beverage, by the way, if I do that.
That's right.
But I think that's fantastic. What as a parent, should I be checking out like the local park service, the BLM? What would I be checking out to make sure what is available, what trails are open, what the conditions are?
Yeah, that's great. There's like BLM's great. I like BLM because there's a lot less rules on BLM. National Forest is good. There's going to be a national forest office that you can call and talk to a ranger and
Mhm.
find age appropriate trails on and maps and those sorts of resources. And then national parks, of course, are awesome, but usually not all of us live next to a national park, and they're a little more regulated. So it's kind of about how much time you have to dedicate to it. But usually, especially like in Nevada where you are, there's tons of BLM land, right?
Oh yeah.
Out here in Oregon, tons of BLM land, lots of forest for national forest. So there's always a head office that takes care of that area, and you can call and talk to, if not a ranger, a naturalist of some sort, who will help to guide you into, hey, I got 3 6-year-olds. I need something that's going to be an hour or less, and I want to be by water, so it's cool, and we can play with the frogs or whatever your interests are and your kids' interests are.
Okay. Something that comes to mind, especially out in the forest and the BLM land, and being north where you are, is wildlife.
Hmm.
And I asked this because on Thursday, I have an episode that's dropping with Chris Milgate, who is she wrote a book. She's got documentaries, and this one is about the grizzly in the
Hmm.
greater Yellowstone ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, what kind of prep work do I need when the wild animals come into play, especially like in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, I don't get too worried about it. Obviously, you've got to be aware. That's number one. Just like going to downtown San Francisco or downtown Portland, you got to be aware of your surrounding and what's watching you and pay attention. But, for us, it would be mostly would be mountain lions. That would be, and it would have to be a mountain lion that was not well. So
Mhm.
you're talking about a tiny percentage, tenth of 1% chance that you're going to run into something like that. It's more likely the kids are gonna slip and fall on a rock in the river
Mhm.
and and twist an ankle than, run into wild animal that's gonna be a challenge. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Regarding slipping and falling in rocks and rivers, that could be fun if you're a kid. As an adult, not so much. What type of shoes are kids going to be wearing, and also hiking sticks, the poles? Because it was funny when I was at Valley of Fire, I saw parents. I don't know if they were parents, but adults with kids, and they're carrying water bottles,
Right.
plastic water bottles, which to me
Yeah.
is like, are you kidding me? Uh, and then you've got the shoes, the poles. So, what's your recommendation for parents and kind of outfitting their children?
As you're just getting started, you can just go with whatever the streetwear is, and then for trail walking, I mean, I've hiked 75-mile backpacking trips in regular tennis shoes.
Mm,
So it doesn't take a huge capital investment when you're first getting started.
okay.
The walking sticks is it's a preference. Some people like them and they like to have the extra stability. But you bring up a good point about having a day pack. I think that's mission critical item for a trip leader, a parent. You got the day pack that's got spare water bottles, maybe a poncho in there if it could rain. All obviously the food, small first aid kit, and then you know that way the kids can have their hands free and you're carrying that 10 pounds of weight or whatever it is. Yeah.
Okay. So, as you start to embark on the trail, you're properly outfitted. What's your go-to, or with the story with Wenaha Henry? What's the go-to for your favorite for the snacks to bring along?
Well, I'm a trail mix guy and I like to make my own trail mix.
Okay.
So
Do you have a recipe for that?
it's 2 parts chocolate, 1 part everything else.
I was going to put your recipe on the show notes, but if you want to be flippant like that, we don't.
No,
Not gonna do it.
no. 2 parts M&Ms to everything else. No, it's simple. It's almonds and dates and, few peanuts and then, yeah, some M&M style, chocolate.
All right. All right. Any other snacks that are suggested?
A little bit of protein. The kids always like to have a lot of times you get away with peanut butter and jelly or something like that.
Okay.
But, or the traditional in my house was the Gallo salami stick and,
Ah,
and then a block of cheese, right?
okay. Okay. And as far as the activities, what I loved about the book is a whole chapter on what do we have, 50 different activities. What are some of your most memorable activities that you would have included in the book?
Well, I love the tracking because kids, obviously, as kids, we're always enamored with the animals. And so if you did just tracking and scat, right?
Hmm.
And have the kids take a look and watch, especially on riverbanks, you're able to see good tracks that way. But on the trail, you're able to track and see deer or there's other dogs or those sorts of things.
Hmm.
And then for me, I love to fly fish, and that was my favorite activity growing up was being able to get turned loose on a trout stream in northern and have some time outside, like you're talking about, sitting on a rock and then casting dry flies at trout.
I love it. I love it. And speaking of just sitting on a rock, what I also loved about the book, and it surprised me as I was kind of going through it, this whole idea around meditation practices and
Mhm.
night hikes and isolation. And I mean, I just can imagine what the stars are like up in your neck of the woods. I mean, I love being outside at night, the quiet, you get the sounds of nature around you, and there's the stars. But the meditation practice, and how often or when did you yourself begin to incorporate that activity? Because that to me was very important, what you shared here in the book, because we need to stop and just stop. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I studied with this, author named Tom Brown, who you might have
Okay.
heard of, who's um, he's a survival expert, and he studied with the Lipan Apaches, a man named Stalking Wolf. He's out in New Jersey, of all places. Have you heard of Tom Brown? Seen any of that?
I've not heard of Tom Brown. I know where Jersey is. I know there's a couple folks still stuck in the Pine Barrens.
Yeah, so Tom, he was, it's the Benicio del Toro movie called The Hunted.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so that was loosely based Tommy Lee Jones was loosely based on Tom Brown, and
Okay.
he was a, part of the support team for Tom was for, uh, explaining a lot of that
Okay.
content. So anyway, he teaches a survival school in Aboriginal skills, and so that is something that is as old as humans. Sitting by yourself, understanding who you are and what your gift to the world is, and how to execute it, and how to make decisions.
Mhm.
And some of us call it meditation, some of us call it prayer, but it doesn't come from being busy. It comes from being introspective and recounting situations and what you believe in, and what you want to accomplish. And so that was 25 years ago, uh, and it's been an essential part of the practice that I have, both to be ready to go into nature, and but also to bring nature back with me, because that's the razor's edge that we all have with nature and wilderness is how do you balance modern culture and the amenities that we all live with in simplicity versus when you're out in the woods and you've got to make decisions, and sometimes you gotta build stuff. You actually have to think things through in order to get out of situations, and that's
Mhm.
part of the magic, but also part of the challenge, right, of being
Mhm.
out there. So I see it as a big tangled web of all those things, Howard. I don't know. Hope that
Okay.
made sense to you.
It's your message, so it has to make sense. I'm just the receiver, so it worked out good.
All
So
right.
I'm curious. The in the forward to the book, you mentioned about that this book proceeds from this book support the Camp Jack Hazard. Tell us more about that.
Well, it's an amazing camp in Central Sierras, just north of Yosemite National Park, and it was a former YMCA camp that the YMCA is now gone, but a private foundation was created to support the camp, and uh, it's a wilderness camp at about 6,000 feet, and all the kids actually go backpacking for between 3 and 7 days, as well as being in the base camp. So it's kids from the Modesto area, who get a chance to get up into the high country, high Sierras, and do legitimate backpacking trips. And uh, even coming from the family I did, it changed my life and my view of the world.
Mhm.
And for kids who had never seen snow or never been fishing or any of those sorts of things, it really is a powerful changer in their life to be able to spend 3 days completely disconnected from typical society. So it's a really neat and unique uh, summer camp.
I love that, and we will definitely. I mean, I'll put a backlink to the summer camp in
That's awesome.
in the show notes. So I'm curious, your grandkids, where's your next adventure with them?
Let's see. Well, we're doing unicorn birthday today, and then we're actually looking at they're just turning 5. So next summer will be the first adventure that we're talking about, and we'll take them camping. That'll be the first thing that we do
So
is
you're
we
gonna be
go.
living this book. You're living the
Oh,
book.
absolutely. Yeah, this is it's all from my heart. The Wenaha Henry series is all to support my grandkids and kids like them that are growing up in this time that's confusing and challenging.
Okay. I love, at the onset of the show today, you had mentioned some folks had pre-read the book before it's publishing, and they were like, "Oh, wow, wish I'd had this," or I didn't know that. What's been some of the other reaction to this book and its content?
I've had people say, thank you so much for just giving me a recipe and something to do that is different than what kind of the trap we're in. Like communication can get difficult sometimes
Mhm.
with parents and kids. So, and this gives them another angle, something else to talk about. That was one thing, and then just reminding some people. That was some of the comments I got was, yeah, thanks. I grew up camping. We lost it through the chaos of getting married and kids and blah blah blah, and that triggers me to want to share that now with the kids. So it's been gratifying.
Excellent. Where you're at right now up in, in it was Eagle River, correct?
Sun River
Okay. What was
Bend, like by
Bend?
Bend.
Up by Bend,
Yeah.
and the trails there, what's one of the trails that if you were gonna go out into this area that like, okay, this is the trail to go on today. Like, it means so much to you.
Yeah, I mean, right outside of Bend, I mean, right in town, basically, Reed Market Road, you can just park your car and walk upriver the Deschutes River,
Okay.
and, um, it's still wild, there's still trout in there, there's deer running around, which means that there's coyotes and bobcats and mountain lions, and, it's, still an intact biome that's right next to town, and that's one of the magic things about this area.
Oh, wow. I may have to check out that area as a future place to pay rent or a mortgage, so,
There
who
you go.
knows? Who knows? Emmanuel, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and congratulations on the new book, Nature Bound with Wenaha Henry. And we're excited to be able to share that with our audience. And I've done a number of episodes this year with authors who have written books for families and children about the adventure of just getting out there and exploring. And that was one of the pleasures when we first met. And now this book, it made me smile, especially the meditation and sitting on a rock. It's like, because I spend too much time sitting at a desk producing these episodes. I need to go
Right.
sit on
Yeah.
a rock somewhere. Oh, a couple of weeks I'll sit on the beach looking at the sunrise and the sunset. So, but I appreciate you taking the time to come on the show, chatting about the book Nature Bound with Wenaha Henry, and we wish you much success. And before we leave, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, where should we take them?
Yeah, just emmanuelrose.com is the best place where it's got all the Wenaha Henry books and then also the series of marketing books that I've been.
Fantastic. Well, we'll provide the backlink to it as well. Now, is Wenaha Henry and the Nature Bound, are these only found on the site? Or are they up on any of the book platforms?
Yeah, we're up on Amazon also,
Okay.
so you can find us there or direct,
Okay.
whatever's easy.
We'll provide backlinks to that as well. Emmanuel, thank you again. I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to the next book where you actually plan your overnighters. And just remember, a shout out to Howard Fox. And
Yes, that's right. All right, Howard. Thank you so much today.
all right, you listen, stay in the line. We're going to do a quick close, and you and I can have a final chat.
Thanks. Good.
All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Emmanuel Rose. Out, 3, 2, 1. All right, folks, we have just been chatting with Emmanuel Rose, author, outdoorsman, marketing expert. And today, Emmanuel was chatting with us about his new book, Nature Bound with Wenaha Henry. What I really love about this book is this is like a primer for parents who realize they've got to turn off the electricity and the screens, and maybe they're within an hour, half hour drive, so a little more, little less of nature, and they want to not only unwind themselves, but also to introduce their children to being out in nature and all that it has to offer to explore, whether it's the trails, the streams, looking underneath a rock, looking for the signs of life, and just a great primer, step by step, planning the activities while you are there, on this outdoor location, as well as the all necessary food. And we'll actually provide Emmanuel's recipe for trail mix because that is an important component of a successful excursion outdoors. And what I really also loved about this episode is just the concept of just unwinding, that sitting on the rock or the meditation, and just a great little book. And I do encourage you to pick up a copy. We'll provide the backlinks for it up on our show notes, as well as the Amazon link to the book. And we really also want to introduce you to Camp Jack Hazard, the camp that Emanuel is using this book to support some of the proceeds. And just sounds like a great way that this camp to introduce kids to nature. And so we really appreciate being introduced to it as well. Now, folks, you can find our episode up on the Outdoor Adventure Series website. We're also on Facebook and LinkedIn on our Outdoor Adventure Series pages. And you can also find us on your podcast directory of choice. And we're also going to have a short video segment up on YouTube. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day, and we will see you on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.